Hello and welcome to episode number 293 of the Launch Lounge podcast. If you're spending hours every week on the same tasks, telling yourself it's faster to do it myself, listen up. In today's episode, I'm sharing the exact 3-step framework that helped me buy back 35 hours per week so I can focus on what only I can do while my VA handles everything else. Stay tuned. When it comes to anything related to building a team, managing a team, running a team, handing work off to a team, taking work back from a team, giving team members contracts, deciding how much to pay them, deciding when and where they should work, I have made every mistake in the book. Every mistake there is to make, I have made it. The first time I hired an integrator, I was very skeptical because this was my first big hire. Like, this came with a significant salary, right? Everyone else who had worked for me, and some of them still work for me, up to that point were contractors. And they usually worked for me based on the number of clients they were managing or based on the number of the amount of work we had. It was kind of a freelance situation always. But when I first hired my very first integrator, this was in 2019, my business was growing really fast. The agency side was really expanding. I had a bunch of ads managers. I had a bunch of accounts managers. I had admin people and assistants and all the people things. And I was looking forward to expanding, but things were getting a bit chaotic. I also had the podcast at that stage. So the podcast was fairly new. I had just started it and I felt like I needed some help. So I knew I need to hire an integrator. And of course I was skeptical because I had only ever hired these contractors who were trained in one specific skill and they would come in and fulfill this specific role. But this time I knew I was going to have to hand over control. I was going to have to hand over a lot of things that I like to be in control of. But it was so messy that I thought, oh my goodness, I don't know if anybody can come in and clean up this mess. And I remember hiring this person and taking a chance on it. And our first meeting was like a 3-hour long meeting where she told me, just dump everything on me. Just give me the whole, give me everything. Give me the good, the ugly, the dirty, the messy. Give it to me, everything. And I'm going to put that into a 90-day plan based on what you say we've got here and based on what you say your priorities are. And lo and behold, she came back to me with the absolute most brilliant 90-day plan. She had nailed everything I said, and I was beyond blown away. And that hiring experience was such a positive experience. I think it ruined me for the rest of my life for anybody that I hired because I thought, wow, this is easy. This is so easy. Turns out I hired the best person in the industry who also had a lot of experience and who was really good at her job and at communicating and at working with people like me. So I was very happy after this experience. In fact, I was so happy that I very quickly expanded my team to 11. Now, I expanded my team to 11 team members, and then in 2014, I cut it back, and now we're just 4 again. We were 3 in 2014. We're 4 now. So I have learned a few things. About a year ago, I decided to bring in a little bit more help again after I'd cut back, and I hired a new VA. Very foundational VA who's going to come in and do all the work that the work that I don't need to be doing, that is not the best stuff for me to focus on. And I knew now that I've because now I'm a bit older and a bit wiser, and I had this brilliant experience with the integrator, but I've also had other experiences. I can tell you some horror stories about not just me making mistakes, but about team members doing weird stuff. But that's a podcast for another day. But I hired a VA and I knew this is going to be painful for me. This is going to be hard for me. because I'm going to have to really slow down, and I'm going to have to really take my time to properly bring this VA on board and make sure that he knows exactly what I want, how I want it done, and when I want it done. And in the year that he's worked for me, I have gone through phases where I've been brilliant at handing stuff off. And then that has kind of slacked a little bit, where I get to a point where I go, I'm doing some things by myself again that I can totally hand off to him. So what I'm saying is, I am not perfect. I'm by no means perfect. And that, I think, is the key message that I want you to take away from today's podcast is, I have a system. My system works, but I'm still a human and you are still a human. And none of these systems are ever going to be perfect. And the thing the one thing that I've learned, that's been the biggest lesson in hiring people and in trying to make my business perfect and make it run perfectly and make all the systems and processes clean and clear and effective and efficient and documented perfectly. And there's nothing that makes me feel like it's chaotic in any way, is that reality does not exist. That will never exist. And I need to completely let that go. And every time my brain starts telling me, ooh, so this is messy, or that's not good enough, or this is not recorded properly, then I just counter my brain with, okay, what can I do right now to make this a little bit more tidy, a little bit more processed, a little bit more structured? Or is this just my brain braining? Is this just my brain doing what a brain does when it's part of a living, breathing, growing, changing system where you put something in place today and tomorrow it's outdated, or tomorrow it's changed and then it wasn't updated? How I approach my brain and my brain's need to keep things really clean is just by reminding myself that I have a system for handing things off to a VA. I have a system for managing that VA. And within that, I'm going to do 98% the best work I can do. And there's going to be 2% that falls through the cracks. There's going to be 2%. And that 2% is slowly going to creep up to 10% because things change. And as they do, I'm going to adapt. And I'm going to remind myself that it does not need to be perfect. It just needs to show progress. We are all guilty of spending hours and hours on tasks that aren't making us money, telling ourselves that it's faster if I do it myself. But here's what we're really doing. We're trading our CEO time for assistant level work. What if we tried this instead? What if we tried documenting every step while we do it and then handing it off to our VAs? That 3-hour weekly task might take 6 hours to record and document, but it will lead to a 10-minute check-in every single week from then on. So let's commit to stop being the bottlenecks in our own businesses. Let's commit to using this system, this almost perfect system that you will implement and it's going to feel great, but it's not going to lead you to heaven. It's going to feel messy again soon, and then you're going to do it again. So let's commit to stop being the bottleneck in our own business and start slowing down and handing off these VA level tasks that we do so that we can speed up, so that we can start buying our time back, so that we can start really enjoying the fact that we built a freedom empire, a business that allows us to have time for whatever. For some of you, that might be standing on the soccer field, cheering for your kid. For me, it's hockey. For some of you, it might be not working on weekends. For some of you, it might be only working a 3-day week. For some of you, it might mean not working on your side hustle when you come home from work. For some of you, it might mean being able to know you can have another kid and you have the bandwidth to manage that. So, whatever Freedom Empire looks like to you, a VA is going to be part of that. And your success in being able to hand things off starts with this system I'm going to share with you today. The reason it works is because you are going to be spending 4 hours this week on a task that usually takes you 2 hours. But for every other week after this, you're going to have those 2 hours back. So within 2 weeks, you make your time back, right? So here's the 3,000 foot overview of what we're going to cover. We're going to look at identifying what we do. And then we're going to document what we do. And then we're going to hand it off. It's a simple 3-step system, right? Sounds very simple. But the challenge with this is none of us were born knowing how to delegate. But we act sometimes like we should be experts on day one. And I know I'm guilty of that. I'm really hard on myself. But here's the reality. Delegation is a skill we build over time. And it's a skill you build with your VA. Our first handoff might feel clunky. Our second one will be smoother. And by the 5th, 10th, 55th time you do it, you'll wonder why you waited so long. We all have this graveyard of imperfect first attempts. That's the chaos I'm talking about. It's that graveyard of imperfect first attempts, unfinished first attempts. And I want you right now to just let that go. Just remember that only that judgment, that whatever you think of that only exists in your head. That's the only place where it takes up space. So let's cleanse ourselves of any chaotic feelings, any guilt, anything that we feel about things that we've started trying to hand off, and then just put back on our own plates, right? Because this is the journey. This is the learning. The learning is in picking it back up. All right. Step number 1 we're going to talk about is identifying the right tasks. During that time when I was hiring so many people and building my team so fast, one of the roles I had to hire someone in was the lead account manager in the agency. So this is the person who is the first point of contact for every agency client. And this person is expected to be able to handle all communication with clients. So that means this person has to have exceptional communication skills, be very patient and kind, be able to turn anything into a positive, and also know the client's work inside and out, and not just their ads, but their funnels and their marketing systems. Like, you've got to be obsessed with this client to a degree so that you can really understand how to best support a client with ads. And I thought it would be a good idea to look for agencies who already train people on being account managers in agencies, because things like that exist if you didn't know that. I found it out then. So I found this group of girls who are by all means a fantastic bunch. And they train account managers specifically to then go and work in agencies. What I didn't know at the time is my agency is very unique. I didn't think so at the time. I thought, well, we run ads. We're an ad agency. No, we're very unique. I know that now. I thought, well, it can't be that much different from a social media agency or a SEO agency. An agency is an agency at the end of the day. And so I went with this group of girls, and they gave me an account manager. She was located in Canada, which was fine for me because I thought it would be a good idea to have someone who is on the same time zone as my clients. And at the time, I was working all sorts of ungodly hours anyway to try to bend myself into the thought that the planet is not round and I do not need to sleep between the hours of 11 p.m. and 4 a.m., which was not a good idea. But I figured, no, I can manage this girl. I will manage her in the mornings and she will do her work during the day and she will check in with me in the evenings. Or we had some kind of thing going. And she was qualified by all means, and I thought I could make it work. But then she started making mistakes, and not just small mistakes, like epic mistakes. And we had SOPs in the business, we had brief templates, we had every single thing in the agency recorded to a T. It was beautifully systems and processes laid out, wonderfully done. And in my mind, I thought, given that she knows how to be an account manager, and given that I have all of our processes and structures and templates and everything mapped out, that she's going to succeed. My mistake was thinking that an entire system that can take people years to master could be reduced down to an SOP or to a bunch of processes and templates. Now, I want to say it can, but just like you and I aren't going to go into doing heart surgery because we've got the handbook that tells us the step-by-step of heart surgery, it was unfair of me to expect this person to just use the handbook that I gave her to be able to manage client accounts. She did not understand the fundamentals of online course funnels, of digital product funnels. She understood the basics of ads, which was great, and she understood the basics of funnels, but she didn't understand it in depth enough that she was able to pick up on what the client was giving us and then turn that into a proper brief for an ads manager and a copywriter and a designer. And very quickly and with a lot of pain, a lot of pain, I had to let this girl go. And it was really hard for me because I had no idea how I was gonna replace her and where I'm gonna find someone who can take over her job. It was a dark time. What I learned was that when we're looking for jobs that we can hand over to anybody, whether it's an account manager or a VA, there really are certain tasks that lean themselves more towards being easily delegated and other tasks that can be delegated in part, but you still need someone to oversee the system or the process, someone who actually has experience. And what we're talking about today is tasks that can be handed over. It's usually the tasks that we hate most as CEOs or founders or entrepreneurs. But the irony is those tasks are handing them over is the golden ticket to our freedom. If it's repetitive, if it has clear steps, and it doesn't require your unique expertise, it's perfect for delegation. Social media posting, email management, data entry. These tasks aren't beneath us. They're just keeping us from the work that only we can do because they can be done by someone who doesn't have our expertise. So let's document once, delegate forever, and start creating the space we need to grow. So start by looking for the repetitive tasks in your business. Some of the ones that I could come up with is email marketing, scheduling emails. That's not a task I need to be doing. It's a repetitive task. Social media scheduling. There are elements of podcasting and blogging that I don't do. I don't create show notes because it is not something that requires my expertise. I had input in how I want the show notes created. I had input in the SEO strategy in creating the show notes. But once that strategy is delivered and it is turned into a process, then I can hand it off, right? Tasks that are easy to hand off are process driven. In other words, they have clear steps. Now, I know if you're like me, maybe you're thinking, yeah, but I'm not sure. I just do the thing, but I don't know exactly what the steps are that I take. And that's okay. I'm going to show you how to move through that, because I'm the same. I'm kind of a jump in and do it girl. And then once I've jumped in and done it, I did not think about how I did it. I just did it, right? But I'm going to give you a tool to do that. So there are certain parts of the podcasting process that's process driven. Well, actually, everything is process driven, but not everything is handed off to a VA. Some things are. There are process driven tasks like data and analytics collection, data gathering, spreadsheet filling out, right? Or content planning, content research, content creation, content scheduling, content editing, and then publication. Anything in your business that gets published, a blog post, a social media post, that can all be handed off. And content distribution. That's another part of the podcast that is handed off. So if you let's think about for a second a process-driven system. The podcast is a great example. I begin by looking at the data and analytics to learn what works, what does the audience like to listen to, what do they want more of, what do I think they want more of, what do I think they want less of. I did one episode a while ago about diet changes that I made. I think it's about a year ago. Diet changes that I made when I switched to a protein-based diet and how it has changed my life. And I was so excited about posting that episode, and it got absolute crickets. So thanks for that, all of ya listening. I know now that you do not care about my diet. And so I will not talk about my diet anymore. You are not hearing about my boiled eggs anymore. But so if we think about a podcast process, it has that first bit, the strategy, right? The data, the looking at the data and analytics, the thinking about the data and analytics. Then there's the strategy piece of planning the episodes. Then there's the creation of the episode content, which includes scripting or planning or writing some kind of outline, and then recording. That's a whole nother process. And then there's editing. And then there's publishing, which includes show notes and, a slightly different version for Libsyn and a slightly different version for YouTube and a slightly different version for the website. And then there's the distribution of it, promoting it on social media, sending out the emails. So you can see that a process isn't always just one thing. A process can have multiple processes inside it. And so if you were thinking, well, I'm worried about hiring a VA to help me with the podcast because I'll just do it myself, it'll be faster. I want to say maybe if you think about the processes within the processes, you'll realize that some of those things can be handed off, even if the whole thing can't be handed off. And that's where the gold in this lies. The third thing that can be easily handed off to a VA is the non-strategic stuff, the things that doesn't require your expertise or things that can be templatized, like social media posts. And I use social media posts as an example because that's something that I would hear people say, I can't hand over my social media to someone else because they're not me. They don't know how to speak like me. They're not going to create the same content as me. They're not going to be me. And that is true. But you're not going to create posts every single time that is filled with you. Or you're going to create posts that is filled with you, but they're batched. And someone else can edit them, and someone else can create the hook, and someone else can write the caption, and someone else can schedule them. So there might be parts of it that requires just you, but the whole thing doesn't require all of you. All right. Email management, data entry, research tasks, calendar management. That's actually something that I don't hand off. Calendar management. I don't. I like managing my own calendar. It's part of my time blindness. I need to manage my own calendar, and otherwise I won't show up anywhere. There was a time when a VA managed my calendar, and that's how I learned that I don't do calendar management well if someone else manages my calendar. Because if you're time blind and someone else manages your time, then there's no reason for you to look at your calendar, right? And then you don't show up where you need to be. Learned that the hard way. So calendar management is something I don't hand off. Basic project management, like recurring tasks. Like I'm having my VA create the monthly reminder to record the social media data, meeting agendas. That's one of the things that is a giant pain in my ass, is creating meeting agendas for upcoming meetings or for recurring meetings. I don't have to be the one duplicating the agenda. I don't want to have to be the one filling it all out. I can hand it off to someone else and ask them to fill that out. Here's one that I love that I have been handing over: uploading material to AI. If you're regularly podcasting, you should be uploading every single podcast episode to Notebook LM. If you are regularly blogging, you should be uploading every blog post to Notebook LM. It is the best way to never have to search through your brain for content. If you have an AI library that is already filled with your own content, and you can just go to it and say, hey, I need to create a podcast episode about handing things off to a VA. What have I said about this in the past? Then you will be amazed at the wisdom that AI tells you. You have already said that. You've already done that. You've already created it. And so now you can just update something that you've already created. That is also how us coaches and course creators are able to identify our unique methods for teaching things, our unique models, our unique take on things. Is you can upload it to AI and say, hey, what do I say over and over? Right? Do you know what my AI told me I say over and over when I asked it? Ads don't make you money, marketing makes you money. I didn't know I say that until my AI told me. And I wouldn't have known that if my assistant didn't upload all my podcast episodes. So get them to do that. And then creating and updating databases and directories. When your business gets to a certain size and you have hundreds of pages and hundreds of podcast episodes or blog posts, or you don't know which social media posts worked and which ones didn't because you haven't kept track of it. Like, you need a database, you need a directory to be able to know where your resources are, where your stuff is, which page is linked to which form, and what tags are on there. Or naming conventions. You start to need these things, and that's the kind of thing that that VAs can do. If you're loving what we're covering today, I've got something special for you. Right now, and for a limited time, I'm creating exclusive bonus content for every single episode that goes way deeper than what we can cover here on the show. Think actionable worksheets, behind the scenes insights, and the tools I actually use to get these results. It's completely free, but it's only available to my email subscribers. If you want to get more actionable help and dive even deeper with me, the only way to get it is to sign up. Head to thelaunchlounge.com/podcast-freebie right now to grab today's bonus content and never miss future episodes' exclusive materials. The things that you can't delegate include anything that has to do with strategy, anything that has to do with how you plan to grow. And by that, I mean anything that's going to have a massive impact on your traffic and your conversion rates, right? So don't hand off anything that involves major strategic decisions that could impact the number of people that find you online and how they convert to leads and sales. everything else can be handed off. So that is step one. Step one is identify the things that can be handed off in your business. Step two, document while you do. And sometimes the hardest part of handing something off to someone else is that we don't really have real awareness of the actual process we follow when we do something. I remember this so well. At one point, I still had the Launch Lounge membership running, but I didn't have the help that I used to have in there. And so it became my role to upload the recording of the call, and then create a post in the Facebook group that said, the call is now up. Here's the things that we learned. And of course, knowing what I know now, and I knew it then, I knew the most important thing is I have to turn this into an SOP, because as soon as I can, I'm going to hand this off to someone else. And I did, but I hadn't created an SOP in the longest time. And I remember going through this process, and this was a job that took me maybe 20 minutes, but there were a few different platforms involved, because I had to do something in Kajabi, and I had to do something in Facebook, and then I had to do something in AI. And then, there's a few different platforms and a few different steps. And I was like, oh, how do I do this again? How do I do this again? And I remember this feeling of, if I don't try to create awareness of what I'm doing, I'm going to do it a lot faster, because I'm just going to get through it. And when I get to a place where I'm like, where I have a roadblock, then I'm just going to go and do the thing that is unblock my roadblock, right? But to try to think about, how do I put this into an SOP someone else can follow, where they're not going to get into the roadblocks, that kind of muddled up my brain a little bit. And I went, no, hang on. I'm just going to record what I do. And if I hit roadblocks, I hit roadblocks, because I can improve on this. The first draft is just going to be here's what I do when I just have a go at it sort of document. So you just dive in and you get it done without thinking about what you do, because it is this paralysis from not knowing what you do that stops you from actually recording what you do. Am I right? Are you feeling me on this? Am I the only person who feels that paralysis? I don't think I am. I think you're nodding your head right now. I think I'm onto something with this paralysis, right? So what I learned, and I learned this skill way back in coaching school when I was studying to be a coach. And this has been a skill that has shown up in every area of my life to be the most valuable skill on the planet. And I think it's probably because another name for this skill is thinking. This is a superpower if you're a CEO or a founder or an entrepreneur, and it is your ability to break things into categories. That's why I say it's also known as thinking, right? Because if you can break things, anything, into the bigger categories, and then the subcategories, and the subcategories, and the subcategories, then that thing can become something you can teach anyone. And as course creators, this is an important skill. It is a critical skill for us to have, to be able to break things into categories. And I want you to think of it a little bit like building Russian dolls with anything that you can have, because every single thing can be broken into categories, and that can be broken into subcategories, and that can be broken into subcategories. And then sometimes there might be overlap between different subcategories. And that's where you then get to decide, well, does it go here or there or in both places? And if you're a project manager, of course, that makes your life a dream if you already have things broken into the different categories. So let me give you an example of categories within categories within categories. When you think about social media, right, and you think about handing off your social media to someone else, and maybe the feeling comes up that, well, I can't hand off my social media. How can I do that? Because how can they capture me? Let me help you. Let's think through the categories of social media. So the first category is the big picture. It's the strategy, right? It's the big picture, the strategy, the what are we going to create, or how are we going to approach uh, meeting our ideal customer on social media. Strategy, number one. Number two is creation, content creation. What are we going to create? We have to record something, we have to say something, we have to do something. What are we going to do? Content creation. The next category is quality control. How are we going to know if it's good enough? How are we going to decide what to post and what to throw away? Next category, scheduling. Someone needs to put that stuff up. Someone needs to make sure it gets shown to our audience. And if we can automate that, excellent. Next category, data and analytics, looking at the results. Someone needs to collect those numbers. And then we're back to strategy, right? So that is a monthly routine in my business for social media. Those are the categories. The strategy bit, that's my job. The content creation bit, that's my VA's job. The quality control, that's my SOP and my job. And my VA, but he uses the SOPs and the guides that I've given him. The scheduling, not my job at all. I don't look at scheduling. The data and analytics, I only look at it once it's captured, so a month later. And it comes to me. So those are the main categories. But now, when we think about subcategories, I can take content creation and divide that into subcategories. I can divide it into video creation as a subcategory. I can create image creation as a subcategory, and I can create copy as a subcategory. But now we can go one step further, and we can say within video, there's B-roll creation, there's meme creation, and then there's scripted videos. Those are all three different categories of video we can create for social media. I can do the same thing with copy. I can say there's caption writing. That's one category of copywriting. And I can say there's carousel post creation. That's another category. Now, the reason you're feeling paralysis around handing off social media, or I'm using social media as an example, but the reason you're feeling paralysis around handing something off to a VA is because you look at this big thing and you go, well, no one can do it as well as I can. But once you can break it down into categories and subcategories and subcategories, then you can create an SOP for a subcategory, and you can start small. I can create an SOP for my VA to follow to create a meme. That's not difficult. I can give them tons of examples. I can give them access to my CapCut account. I can show them things I've created in the past. I can tell them, certain things that's happening in the industry, or certain situations my ideal client finds themselves in regularly that's funny, and they can go and create the memes. So there's 2 or 3 posts in a month that they can create. Or I can teach them how to create captions. I can teach them how to put the call to action in. So you don't have to start with the whole big system. Once you have it broken down into categories, you can start small and start with one thing and turn that into a process that you can hand off, and then make something a little bit bigger and something a little bit bigger and something a little bit bigger. So if you have ever felt paralysis or overwhelm with the idea of delegating, then use my category system. Just sit down and break it into categories and see if you can start small. So once you have whatever it is that you're going to delegate, let's stick with social media for the purposes of this exercise. Take that category list that you created, plus record your screen doing the thing that you are delegating and talk through what you're doing. So literally press record on Zoom and say, I am scheduling a social media post in the Meta Business Manager, whatever thing. I am uploading the video. I am copying and pasting the copy. So say what you do and then take that transcript. So you take your category list and you take your transcript and you upload that to AI. And you say to AI, please use the transcript from my video where I do the thing, plus my list of categories that I've already identified, and help me put together an SOP so that I can hand over this task to my VA. Your AI is going to give you the most amazing, fantastic, beautiful SOP you've ever seen in your life. And what you're then able to do is look at it the way that AI gave it to you, and you will be able to see, oh, actually, this is just a series of smaller steps. And now you can either take screenshots of the smaller steps to show what you do when you're doing it, or you can create little videos, little individual videos that shows your VA exactly what to do in every little step. Now, one thing that's going to be important is to make sure that your AI or your VA knows exactly what this looks like when it's done and when it's done to your standard. Because this is the thing that trips us up is we go, yeah, but they can't do it as well as us. Of course they can't if we don't tell them what as well as us looks like. And again, that comes to that same issue of not having clarity about what you do to the degree that you do it. So I'll give you an example. We used to schedule our emails in ActiveCampaign. You know this because you've been on this painful journey with me, and now we're scheduling in Kit. Inside ActiveCampaign, we were able to create some really juicy, amazing split tests. So I had one split test set up to go out to 25% of our audience, and then based on whichever subject line got the most opens, it would then send that subject line to the other 75%. Another split test I had set up is an email would go out and it's scheduled to go to 25% of our audience for the first 2 hours or for the first 2 hours. And then based on the number of link clicks inside the email, it would then send the subject line with the most link clicks to the rest of our audience. Those were two different split tests we could use, and I would use different ones for different purposes. In Kit, we can't do that. In Kit, we have a simpler split test. So now I have to update my SOP that I've already created, that my VA has, that my VA knows and is comfortable with using, where I demonstrate step by step how to create split tests. So this is what I mean by it can get messy, because now we've moved to a different platform and now everything needs to be updated. But hold on, not everything, just some things need to be updated. But I had to go back and update that and show my VA what it looks like when it's done well inside Kit, which meant that I had to go and figure it out. And then I had to set the standard, record it, put it there, and give it to him. But you know what? I never, ever have to think about how to schedule an email in Kit again. I had to do it once, and I'm a little bit sad because I'm like, oh, I'm not going to know how to use this tool as well as he will. And that's okay, because knowing how to use every tool in my business is not going to keep me in business. Having people in charge of those tools who know how to use them and who can confidently use them and who can use them to the best of our abilities, that's going to keep me in business. So here's a few tools that I use when I'm recording my screen and when I'm creating these SOPs. I love using Workflowy. Workflowy is a free tool, and it's basically just bullet points within bullet points, within bullets, within bullets, within bullets. So if you're like categorization, like I do, Workflowy is your best friend. I use ClickUp instead of Loom. You guys know I've gone through this whole tech stack reordering. Loom is expensive, and Loom's great, but Loom's not that great. ClickUp has a free plan where you can record videos just like Loom. So I use that. You can also use a tool like Snagit or your computer's screenshot tool, which I use a lot to take screenshots. And I like to record my videos on Riverside because then I can get an easy transcript. And I also record the podcast on Riverside, so that makes it easy. So all of my long form videos live inside Riverside. But you can try Descript as well if you just want to record yourself doing it on your screen and then upload it. I want you to do the grandmother test. Once you have your document, once you have that SOP, that step-by-step thing with your screenshots and everything outlined in detail, do the grandmother test. Can your grandmother follow these instructions? Yep, that same grandmother who can't send a text message, that's the grandmother. That's the grandmother. If she can follow it, then you're golden. All right, so that was step number 2. Step number 2 was all about documenting it and getting it out of your head in the easiest way possible and onto a SOP or a document that you can hand over to someone else. Step number 3 is handing it off. Handing it off. Okay. So first thing you're going to do is you are going to call a meeting with your VA. You may, if you're like me and you watch a lot of medical dramas, shout out to all my Grey's Anatomy fans. Shout out to the Pit watchers. That's my recent most favorite one. The saying on these medical shows where they're in the medical hospitals where they're teaching people, they say, see one, do one, teach one. Now, I'm really hoping that those kids who operate on people didn't just see it once. I'm sure they see it many, many times before they do one and many, many more times before they teach one. But you know what I mean by see one, do one, teach one, right? You're going to set up a meeting with your VA and set it up on something like Zoom where you can record the meeting and show them as you do the thing that you are wanting to hand off to them. This is important. It is important that they see you do it live in real time and have the opportunity to ask you questions, because there might be things that you didn't think about or things that you took for granted or things that you did prior to coming on that, creating that document, that you forgot that you did that thing. So it is important that you show them live exactly how you do the thing. They then also have that recording, so they can go back to that anytime. So they have 2 sources. They have your document with your step-by-steps, and they have the little videos and the little snippets that's connected to that. And they also have a video of you walking them through exactly what they're doing. Ask them for feedback. Ask them if they have questions. It's important not to assume that they don't have any questions, all right? Ask them for questions. And then this one is critical. Build in quality checks. You have to be able to show someone what it looks like when it is done to your standard. Whenever someone says to me, yeah, but they just don't do it as well as I do, what I hear is I haven't written down what well means to me, right? You haven't written down what well means. You only have to write that down once. You only have to show them once what it looks like when it's done right. Or you can make a list of typical mistakes that are not present, like in an email, all the links are checked, all the links are working. There are certain quality checks that you can work in, and it has to be on the document. If they come back and they made a mistake and it's because it wasn't on the document, then that is on you. All right, now you're going to step back. You're going to let them do it. Let them show you. Let them go away and practice and, have a safe space to learn. And then let them come back and show you do it. Show you how they do it. And if you're happy with that, then leave them, let them do it. But check in again very soon after you hand it off. And that, my friends, is how you start buying back your time. Now, there are a few common obstacles and solutions that I want to share with you that I heard from students over the years. The one is, my VA doesn't understand my business. My VA doesn't understand my business. Of course your VA doesn't understand your business. It's your job to explain it. You want this person to be part of your team long term. So put your business down on paper. Explain it. Explain your mission. Explain your vision. Explain who your ideal customer is. Explain where you're going in the next year. Explain what the biggest technology tools are that you use. Explain what your purpose is. Explain your big marketing plan. Explain how you're selling things. Explain why you're selling it. Put it on paper and create a company document, a company book, because you're only going to put this down on paper once and you're going to be able to give this to every single person who comes after this VA. And it's going to be so much easier and they're just going to be up and running so much faster. Another thing that I hear is, I'm worried about quality control. Yeah, you should be. You need to write that stuff down, all right? You need to know what your standards are. Every SOP has to have a section where it says, these are the standards. This is what it looks like when it's done well. These are the things you need to look out for. These are the common mistakes. These are the things that can go wrong. Your SOP contains that. So think about that and make sure you communicate not just what can go wrong, but what it looks like when it is done well. That is how we transfer standards to other people. Another question I get, what if they make a mistake? What if they make a mistake? They will make mistakes. They're human. But here's the news. So are you. I think in my business, I have made more mistakes than my team put together, right? You are going to make mistakes too, and they are going to make mistakes. If they make a mistake because you didn't document something, that's on you. If they make a mistake because sometimes it happens and it's the exception, give them some grace. But then put a quality control measure in place so that that doesn't happen again. And if they constantly make mistakes that can be avoided, then they're probably not a match for your values and for the standards to which you expect work to be done in your business. And then you need to have some difficult conversations. But here's the biggest one. Maybe you felt like this before. I feel guilty asking them to do boring tasks. Hands up if you've said that before in your head. I certainly have, right? You are not hiring an entrepreneur. You're not hiring yourself. You're not hiring someone whose brain is wired the way your brain is wired. It took me by surprise to learn that not everybody wants to own their own businesses. It took me by surprise to learn that some people like it when you tell them what to do. I'm not one of them. But some people do. It's the joy of diversity. It means that we get to do what we do because there are people who love repetitive tasks. There are people who love being told what to do and how to do it. Brains work differently, and you've got to remember that this is a role that you created inside a business. The role needs to be fulfilled. And in the fulfillment of that role, there are repetitive tasks that you might think are boring, but they are still repetitive tasks that needs completing. And when this person said, yes, I would like to sign up for this role, that's what they signed up for. So you don't need to feel guilty about giving them boring jobs because remember, they signed up for a role. They're held accountable for how well they do the role. And don't worry, their brains don't work like yours. They actually possibly enjoy doing repetitive tasks really well at a high standard. So this week's challenge for you, I want you to take one task and document it. Even if you don't have a VA, just start documenting today so that you can, A, become aware that there actually are things in your business that you can start handing off to a VA, and B, be ready when you have a VA. Or maybe you'll realize you can hire someone by the hour and give them a few things to do and start buying back your time one small bit at a time. Here's the truth. Your first delegation attempt might feel clunky. Your second one will be smoother. But by your fifth, your 55th, your 100th, you'll wonder why you waited so long to start. So give yourself permission to be a beginner at this. But please begin. Begin at this. Here's what I want you to remember as we wrap up. Every hour you spend doing work that someone else could handle is an hour stolen from your zone of genius. It's an hour taken away from strategy, from growth, from the big picture thinking that only you can do for your business. But more than that, it's an hour taken from your life, from being present with your family, from pursuing that passion project, or simply having the mental space to dream bigger. The entrepreneurs who scale aren't the ones who can do everything themselves. They're the ones who can let go of everything that isn't uniquely theirs to do. They understand that delegation isn't about losing control, it's about gaining freedom. So I'm challenging you. Pick that one task that's been eating up your time week after week. The one you keep saying you'll delegate someday. Document it this week. Not perfectly, just good enough. Because somewhere out there is someone who would be thrilled to take this off your plate. Someone who might even do it better than you. Your business doesn't need you to be the person who does everything. It needs you to be the person who sees the vision, makes the big decisions, and creates the impact only you can create. So stop apologizing for wanting your time back. Stop feeling guilty about delegating work that isn't in your zone of genius. Your business and your life are waiting for you to step into your role as the CEO, not the chief everything officer. The life you want, the business you're building, the impact you want to make, it's all on the other side of learning to let go. And you are ready for it. So now go and document that task and buy back your time, because you've got bigger things waiting for you. And if you're on my newsletter list, you've got a big thing coming to you. You'll be receiving a free delegation quick start checklist that will help you implement what we talked about today. And if you want to get that checklist, you've got to go to thelaunchlounge.com/podcast-freebie and sign up. On Thursday, we're asking the question, how do you know if your list is burnt out? So join me again on Thursday and let's find out if your list really is burnt out or if there's something else you're missing right now. See you then. Bye. I absolutely love seeing where you tune in every Tuesday and Thursday. Whether you're listening while walking the dog, during your morning coffee, or at the gym, I want to see your setup. Snap a quick photo of where you're listening right now and either email it to podcast@thelaunchlounge.com or share it on your Instagram stories and tag @the_launch_lounge. It seriously makes my day to see our community in action, and I love featuring you. Thanks for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode.